Howdy guys, this is Shane. This is a new gear or rig rundown for 2014. I'm not supposed to write rig rundown because Premier Guitar will get right onto you about a trademark. So this is a gear rundown, not to be confused with the earlier one that I just mentioned. So I take you through my amps, guitars, pedals, and what I currently have. My gear changes all the time, but there's a few things that I've kept throughout the entire, well, at least for the last few years anyway. So I'm going to show you what I've got, what I've downsized, and so forth. So I'm going to start with the amplifiers and take it from there. All right, this is my 65 Fender Deluxe Reverb Reissue. I've had this amp now for probably 2 years, maybe a little longer. I'm not 100% sure how long I've had it, but there's one thing for certain, it really kicks ass. What I love about it is you plug in and you just get a great tone. It's a little mid-scooped, but that's just kind of the vibe of these amps. They have a particular type of voicing. I don't ever use the left side here, this dry channel. I much prefer having reverb, and the onboard tremolo doesn't get used a whole lot because you have to use the foot switch with it, which I have, but it's one of those things where up until recently I had more than enough pedals and I just didn't want to carry that around as well. There was no real benefit of carrying around the foot switch. All it really did was turn the reverb on and off, or the vibrato channel here on and off, and the reverb stays on the entire time I play, no matter what. So yeah, it's loaded with a Jensen Special Design CK12 speaker, and I'm going to show you that one. So that's the speaker there. It sounds great, I really love it. It's a USA made amp, and it has 12 AX7s as well as 6 V6 tubes. So it's a pretty punchy little amp, and yeah, it's been great. I can't say really anything bad about this, other than for most of the gigs I'll still need my pedals. So yeah, it's one thing that I always need when I'm playing this is at least one overdrive pedal. It's funny, I thought when I bought the Two-Rock Studio Pro 22 that I wouldn't really use this anymore, and I ended up selling the Two-Rock and keeping the Fender amp. So, you know, what can I say? I just feel like this is a more usable sound. It's not quite as thick, and you get way more better top end. I don't know, something about the Two-Rock for me wasn't the sound that I like, so I guess I'm a Fender guy. This amp right here is the Supersonic 60. And this is pretty much the easiest amp I've had to get a good tone out of. I say that in terms of the drive channel. Clean channel on here is good. It's maybe not quite as sweet as the Deluxe Reverb, but fundamentally it's pretty similar. I can get a really nice clean tone out of this amp, but generally I'm always on the burn channel, which is the drive channel. I set it up in a way where my volume control does most of the work. The only other thing that does a lot of work is my back. This thing is pretty heavy, and I've recently hurt my back again, so it's kind of been benched for just a little while at least. For me, this is the easiest amp I've got to play. You plug in and it sounds good. Sure, there's maybe certain type of other amps out there that do a similar kind of thing, but for me this really just has that Fender tone with as much drive as I need straight in, so I can just plug straight in and I'm done. It handles my pedals really well. It sounds great pretty much in any scenario except for super quiet gigs. It sounds good at low volume. Yeah, you might find that it's maybe not suited to super low volume gigs. I would go for a 22 watt if that's the case. But yeah, I can jam around on this and it sounds great. And it also has the fold back legs here, so yeah, you can put it back on an angle if you like it pointing towards your head. Now, in the back of this thing, God, it's heavy, is the original Celestion Vintage 30. Now, I did put a WGS speaker in here, but I've swapped it back out for now. I tried the WGS a few times and there were things I loved about it, but then I've gone back to this speaker just for a little while to sort of see how it sounds in a live situation. There's one thing I noticed with this particular amp: when you turn up a lot of drive, you lose a bit more tops with the other speaker, whereas the WGS sounds way better on clean. So it's a bit of a trade-off. And yeah, so I'm gonna go back to this for a while, see how it sounds, and take it from there. So that's what's going on there. It's a 6L6 tube amp, so bigger power tubes than the Deluxe Reverb, so fatter, rounder, low end, much louder, obviously, and 12AX7 tubes, and it's got a shitload of them in the back. So yeah, it does come with a foot switch, which I have. So this is the foot switch for the Supersonic 60. You've got your vintage and burn channel, so basically clean and dirty channel switch. Vibrolux and basement, so if you're on the clean or the vintage setting, you can then go between two clean channels. The basement voiced one with thicker mids and sort of that vintage tweed sort of tone, or the Vibrolux. If you don't know what a Vibrolux is, it kind of sounds like a mix between a Princeton and a Twin. It's somewhere in the middle there. And your effects loop here, which I've actually used once as a volume boost. I saw a Greg Koch video where he was talking about just running a patch lead in the center return and then using it as a volume boost, and that absolutely works. So yeah, onboard volume boost. Awesome. All right, this amp right here is my newest acquisition. It's the Fender Mustang 3 amplifier. This is one of those amp modeling amps, and it's a solid state amp. I can pick it up nice and easily. It doesn't weigh absolutely anything at all, and it's rated at 100 watts. I'm not saying it'll be as loud as the Supersonic 60, but it's louder than the Deluxe Reverb. At least that's what I've worked out so far. Between 3 and 4, or between 4 and 5 is actually extremely loud on this thing. It does a few things very, very well. It has a lot of presets I'll never use and a lot of amp models that I'll never use. But the things that it does well are the Fender models. So yeah, as you may have seen on my video about the Eric Clapton Tremolux versus this, or the Fender Deluxe Reverb versus this, it sounds great. It really does sound good. I'm really looking forward to playing this live and giving it a shot at the jam or at a gig or whatever comes first. So yeah, it's one of those amps where I kind of brushed these off because I thought, A, there's going to be a whole lot of shit in there that I'm never going to use. And you know what? The tube snob in me thought, maybe they're just not very good. So I kind of dismissed them, but I've come to appreciate how easy they make things. You get a couple of good amp settings and you're done. Built-in stomp box, modulation, delay, and reverb. And you can foot switch control all of it, which just makes it awesome. Now the Mustang 3s have a Celestion G12T 100 speaker. It doesn't look that big, you know, like the magnet's not very big, so it's a fairly light speaker. I did notice today that the Mustang 4s have they have the 7080 Celestions, which maybe make the amp feel a bit warmer. I'm going to try putting a WGS speaker in here just to sort of see how it sounds, or maybe a different Celestion or something, just to sort of give it see if it changes the feel of the amp in a good way. Or maybe I'll even try one of those Texas Heat speakers. I know they make a 100 watt 8 ohm one as well. So I guess the good thing about these is their price, they're light, you can get a lot out of them. Some people might fiddle with it forever, and I guess that's one of those things where amps like this, they kind of can mess with your head a little bit, because you've got so many options that, you know, you might think, you know, one day I like this, one day I like that. I think set up 3 or 4 really good sounds and then be done with it. What's easy about it too is if you're playing and you need more low end or you need more bass, you can simply just turn the EQ knob and you're done. You don't need to go into any menus or anything. So it's basically like an amplifier, like any other normal amp with a master volume control. So you can basically just change these on the fly. You don't need to do anything. So it's very cool. So that's all 3 of my amps. I don't have any others right now. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with what I've got. Like I said, the Supersonic 60, as great as it sounds, maybe benched until my back heals at least anyway. But that aside, I know if I go to a jam night where I guess the tone is maybe slightly less important, but the volume thing is more important, I'm just going to take the Mustang, because that way I don't have to bring anything with me other than the onboard or the pedal that came with the amp. So yeah, that's my setup right now in terms of amplifiers, and I'm going to show you my pedal board setup. So I've recently just downsized from the what used to be called the Battlestar Galactica pedal board, which was the big PT3, and yeah, this is now the Pedal Train Junior. So yeah, it's quite a bit smaller and it fits pretty much perfectly the pedals that I have. So let's give this a look. I've just set this up. I'm yet to use this new configuration live. All right, so this is my pedal board up close. Now, the first one on the top right here is the Relay G30. That's a Line 6 wireless or digital wireless unit. And what can I say? It's been great. I picked that up at Guitar Center in California, and yeah, it's been awesome. From here it goes into my tuner, the TU2 by Boss. I do have a second tuner, which is an Arctic Big Dots tuner, but I keep this on here because of the way that it wires in. It's just a lot easier. The other one goes right under they put the power in the stupid spot basically, so it never gets used. And this is my wah pedal, a GCB 95F version of the wah. So it's got that phasal chip. And yeah, it sounds cool. It's pretty mellow and funky. It's not too spiky in the highs. I find the regular one just a hair spiky for the kind of tone I like. And I've had both, but it's all personal choice. Some people love or swear by the original, and that's fair enough. It's just not my thing. Now, my two overdrive pedals, this one here is the Klon KTR. It totally kicks ass. It makes the Supersonic sound like a ball terror. I don't know how else to explain it. If you've got a dirty channel on an amp cranking, you hit this and it sounds so much better. It's maybe not the nicest pedal in the world for a clean channel, but that aside, if you can give your amp a bit more of a push, use this and it sounds fantastic. Now, the brute drive on the end is something that I bought off my friend Brian. Yeah, I had no idea about these. Are Japanese made EWS pedal, and it's kind of like the Klon, except it's got more balls. So if you want a pedal that really gets chuggy and thick and fat, and you can totally just rock out on, that's the one. It does the subtle thing pretty nice too, and it has a boost switch here which thickens the mids, and yeah, it really works well for, you know, bridge tone, and you can cascade these into each other too. This one right here is my digital Delay Dd7, and basically I have this running on either modulate mode now or analog mode. It's currently still on modulate. I'm kind of getting into the weird modulation. I think there's better delay pedals on the market than this one, but when you turn this on, there's no extra hiss, and that's one thing that I really like. And there's a couple of demos I've done recently of pedals, like the Aquapus, the Carbon Copy, and the Mua Equalizer. All of those are probably a better choice than this one. I just feel like I don't use this to its entirety, but the great thing about it is I can do digital or analog delay or modulate. So there's three really cool settings, and I can tap tempo this thing as well. Some of those other pedals you can't do that, so you got to rely on sort of just moving dials. Tap tempo kicks ass. It's all about convenience. So the DD7, that's a keeper. I get asked a lot what kind of pedal power supply I use, and it's been the same now for a couple of years. The One Spot by Visual Sound that powers all of that without any problems at all. 100%. Now, as far as guitar cables go, I'm not the most fussy with them. I've just got some Guitar Center ones that I've had for a couple of years, as well as a few that I bought locally, which were can't remember the brand, but the cable was like Whirlwind cable, and they had Switchcraft connectors, and they're about 30 bucks each or somewhere around there. So I'm not a huge fan on spending $100 on cables. I've done that in the past and just got burned. I didn't find them any better than anything else. So just get ones that look like they've got decent connectors and don't make a lot of noise when you handle them. That's a big thing as well. All right, this is one of the cheapest guitars I've ever purchased. It's the Classic Vibe Stratocaster by Squire. And you know what? This is awesome. It's such a nice guitar. It plays great. It's got hum cancelling in 2 and 4, so you don't get any buzz. The stock pickups sound good. It feels good to play. It holds tuning really well. and it's very, very light. Everything about this is good. It sounds good. Yeah, it's just a great guitar, and I wanted a guitar where I didn't have to be too worried about it if I was playing somewhere, you know, interesting, or there was some gigs I've done in the past. I don't want to be leaving a $3,000 guitar sitting around, so this is a really good option. And yeah, I've played this live so many times now, and people always look at it like, oh, is that a Squire? And then they go, oh, that sounds all right. It's one of those guitars, if you're after a Strat that plays and feels every bit as good as a higher end Strat, these are the ones to go for. Yeah, what can I say? It's just a great guitar. All right, this next one is the Little Crow Corvino, or SD Corvino now. And this is made in Australia by Little Crow Guitars, a new guitar company. And they've kind of like named it after me with my initials, which was totally mind-blowing. So thanks again for that, Dave and Viv. That was way too nice. And yeah, it's good to have a guitar with this kind of combination. I always liked mini humbuckers in the neck, but I was never a huge fan of mini humbuckers in the bridge. I mean, they're okay, but I always liked that tally bite. And these are a matched set of Briley pickups, which are also made in Australia. And it's very, very lightweight, this guitar. It has awesome sustain. And yeah, it's just a great pickup combination. I always wanted this on a Telecaster, but being a lefty, you just can't get that. You can get them in G&L, but I've never found a Blues Boy one anywhere. I had an ASAC Classic Telecaster for a while, and this just blew it out of the water. It played better, and it sounds better. So yeah, it's got the F-holes here, so it's chambered. And yeah, this is like their prototype guitar that I just couldn't send back. It was just too nice. Yeah, fantastic guitar. Check them out online. Support these guys because they're new at what they're doing, and they're a nice bunch of people. And yeah, the neck itself just feels so good. It feels really, really good. So yeah, Little Crow guitar, SD Corvino. All right, it might come as no surprise that the standard of Gibson guitars has come down over the years, and the standard of Epiphone guitars has gotten better and better. But there's one guitar company you don't hear enough about these days, which is Tokai. Now, just to put this into some context, I've had a cherry red dot Epiphone guitar, which is a 335, and I played that non-stop for years. That was my main guitar before I went to a Stratocaster. Well, I started on a Strat, but then I ended up playing a dot 335 for years and years and years. And then one day I thought, you know what? In 2008, I'm gonna spend nearly $4 and I'm gonna go get a Gibson guitar. You know what? That was the worst mistake I ever made. There was so much wrong with that guitar and it sounded terrible. I went through about 10 amplifiers trying to make this guitar sound good. Funny, in between that time, I went back and I played one of the Epiphones and it sounded so much nicer. Maybe didn't have the feel and the finish of the Gibson, but tone-wise, it sounded pretty cool. And then I found this. So this is a Tokai 145L, made in Japan. This was the original lawsuit company. These are the guys that were making sort of replicas of nice Gibsons, and they've modeled them from guitars from way back in the day. So you'll notice it's got the old style tuners. It's beautiful. It feels like the guitar I always wanted in terms of 335. It's got great sustain, and another great thing about it is it sounds open and natural sounding. It doesn't have that dark, thick, weird sound that my Gibson had. And when I went to buy this, I got a chance to A/B it against my previous guitar, 2008 ES335, and everyone in the shop laughed at how much better this thing sounded. And I picked this up for around $1,500. And I think the reason, it's out of tune now, but I think the reason it sounds so good is because it's modeled on a guitar that was, produced back when Gibson were doing their best work. I'm not saying all Gibsons are bad, but I've had a few really bad experiences lately. I had two gold top guitars And yeah, I just couldn't play them. There was something about them that didn't feel right. To me, this feels beautiful. If you can get a chance to check out Tokai, go have a look, because these are fantastic instruments. These are the real deal. Gibson wished they sounded this good. And love it or hate that, it's totally true. I've seen so many Tokais lately that people have that just blow away the Gibson counterpart. And yeah, Gibson should take a page out of these guys' book. This looks better, it feels better, it sounds better. What can I say? And it's like half the price. It's made in Japan. Japanese are great craftsmen, and they're great with lots of things that they do, electronics and so forth. So yeah, what can I say? Awesome. All right, this is my number one Strat. This is a 50th anniversary Stratocaster, and this is American Deluxe. So originally it had an S1 switch here where you could get all these out of phase things going on with a button. It broke a few times, so you know what? I had it replaced with just a regular pot. So I got rid of the whole S1 switching, and then I've tried a whole bunch of pickups in this guitar over the years. I've tried d'Allens, Fat 50s, Fender hot noiseless pickups, the Jeff Beck ones. I've tried SCN noiseless, which were the original ones, and then I went back to those as well. So I've tried them all, and yeah, I just settled on these ones. I bought these off Rick, and these are the Custom Shop Abigail Ybarra pickups. Yeah, he was offloading these when he upgraded his Strat. And yeah, this has that vintage sound. That sounds really, really cool. So the neck on this guitar feels fantastic. It plays just exceptionally well. It's been a great guitar. I should use this more, but I play my Tele mostly nowadays. But yeah, this is one of those guitars where it was the most money I'd ever spent on something up until that point. I was young when I bought it, but it's been great. It has been really, really good. There's not a whole lot I could say that I don't like about it. I've locked off the tailpiece here, so no whammy bar. It comes in a beautiful tweed case, and on the back, it's probably upside down. But yeah, it says a 50th anniversary limited edition or something there. So 1954 to 2004. So 2004 is when I bought this guitar. So I've had it 10 years. That is amazing. I didn't think I'd be still playing guitar, you know, 10 years after, but yeah, it's still going. And the other thing I love about this too, it's got the locking Fender Sheller tuners or whatever they're called here. So these are, they're the best. You just can change a string like that. There's just no problems. Sounds great. In between positions, don't hum cancel. So it's full vintage, and yeah. What can I say? If there wasn't so many Strat players in the world, I'd probably still play it more. Beautiful. All right, last but not least, this is by far my favorite guitar that I've ever purchased. It kind of helped define a sound that I had in my head. And yeah, I'd like to thank the good Dr. Rick for putting me onto these Joe Barden pickups. They're amazing. They've been just the best. And this is one guitar where I'm not gonna ever take them out of. I wouldn't foresee any reason for going back to single coils after playing these. They have it all. And yes, the 1952 reissue Telecaster by Fender. This is the one that came out several years ago, not the most current reissue. I think there's a new one that came out. But yeah, the neck is a little bit bigger, which is what I like for my big hands. It's got vintage style tuners here. It's got a lot of wear and tear, this big black spot, and here is actual relicking by my arm and wrist and pick and all that kind of stuff. So there's a whole lot of blackened areas that won't scrub out now. So that's through use. That's not an extra $1,000 or anything. And yeah, the volume pots I've changed to Mojo Tone pots by CTS, because I had problems with the originals, surprisingly. But anyway, that's another story. But yeah, I've changed them, and Rick has wired this up beautifully. And yeah, that's on the back there. Still got the sticker. And check out that neck, it's just beautiful. The best neck visually I've ever had is the G&L Asset Classic. That was fantastic, but this just feels nice and soft. It doesn't feel sticky to play. Just everything about it's good. It does have smaller frets, and initially that took a little while to get used to. But once you start getting into it, you realize if you loosen up your hand a little, it's easier to play. So you have to push down as hard as a Strat. Or the jumbo fret ones. I don't know, it just feels different to play. So that's my favorite right there. That's it, that's the one you see in all of the videos. It's a killer. So there we go, that's pretty much most of the stuff I have right now. And yeah, it's a pretty good collection. I've managed to get the majority of the kind of guitar sounds that I like. So, you know, I've got the Telecaster tone. It's slightly better than a regular Telecaster tone, I reckon. And the ES335 that I always wanted there, that cherry red one. I've got a Squire Strat that I can take to places where I don't want anything getting damaged, and it still sounds good, and it has sort of like noise cancelling in 2 and 4. So that's a big plus for me in some venues. You know, an original kind of rockin' US Deluxe Stratocaster, and the Little Crow SD Corvino, which I absolutely love, and it's going to be the only guitar on our live album because it sounded fantastic. And one of the things I've learnt off Dr. Rick is to keep things as simple as possible. I know I've got a lot of stuff, but this pedal board is very, very simple to use. It sounds great, and it's all I really need. I do have a whole bunch of other pedals, so occasionally I'll change the brute drive to put on the Barocca Effector Drive 900 pedal, or maybe a different pedal. I've got a whole bunch of overdrives and things stored in the cupboard. I also have a stack of microphones, but we'll leave that for another time. But yeah, that's pretty much my main rig, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to giving some of this a proper shot, like the Mustang. I really want to try that live. I'm sort of hanging out for that. The Supersonic back there, and the Deluxe Reverb, which, you know, is a great amp. It's just one of those ones where you need to either turn it up loud or have a pedal. I get asked a lot, like, what would I prefer, a Blues Junior or a Deluxe Reverb? There's no comparison. If you're gonna make a decision like that, get the Deluxe Reverb, or if you want something small, get the Mustang. I really think it sounds better than a lot of Fender amps. And you can get just about every type of tone out of it, so it's really, really cool. Thanks for watching, I really appreciate it. Please leave all your comments and questions below and I'll get back to you as I always do. I endeavor to reply to everybody if the question hasn't been asked 500 times. So yeah, feel free to leave all your comments and questions below and I'll get back to you. I also can respond a lot easier on Facebook or Google+, so jump on there, all the links are in the description. And yeah, thanks for all your support again, and there's just, it's a great community, and yeah, I look forward to chatting to everybody soon. See ya.